An anonymous WhatsApp line has been set up to report any irregularities during the matric examination. The class of 2021 is expected to sit for their final examination from the 27th of October to the 6th of December. The Gauteng Department of Education says measures have been put in place to ensure that no leakage of examination paper takes place. MEC Panyaza Lesufi briefed the media earlier this morning.
As the class of 2021 gears up to write their matric examination on Wednesday, the Gauteng Education Department says it's all systems go from their side. The department has implemented new strategy to allow for the safety, security as well as health of the students as well as invigilators as they begin examinations.
We've also registered almost 1,004 examination centers, and we've also allowed almost 652 of the 1,004, almost 652 are public ordinary schools, 244 are independent schools, and 97 are adult education centers.
From the 27th of October, we're getting 175,000 of the candidates in Gauteng to write up to the 6th of December. So in terms of what we have put in place, one is that we have ensured that all of our examination centers are accredited. We have 1,004 of those across the province that have been accredited, and we are quite satisfied that they meet the minimum requirements.
To ensure the examinations go through without any hitches, security has been beefed to curb any leakage of papers.
Without elaborating and giving you the extent, I can confirm that at every time there is a just-in-time printing of papers. Two, that we have improved on the level of security that associates with that, both at person level but even at technology level. Because remember, one of the things that had been picked up in the past was that while we use technology for printing and all of that, there had been an indication that there could be risks. We have elevated that.
Parents who have applied for the 2022 academic year online have been urged to ensure they respond to the department's offer before the end of November.
We've got 75,000 parents that have not accepted the placement. And we've got also other parents that have not received the SMSs because our schools are already full. So failure of the 75,000 to accept, then we'll go to those that are still on or are still waiting. The deadline for parents to get the final SMS is the 30th of November. So by the 30th of November, if you have not received an SMS, it means that you have missed out. And the department then will make contact with you.
The department has wished all matriculants well as they begin their final examination. Hasina Gori, SABC News, Johannesburg.
University of Johannesburg Education Senior researcher Professor Mary Metcalfe joins us now on the line. Professor, very good evening to you. Thank you so much for joining us. Welcome to the Globe.
Thank you very much, Simpiwe.
Well, the Gauteng Education Department expressed its readiness for the upcoming examinations. But from what you've observed, are you at all convinced that they are ready?
Well, the readiness of the examination system run by the Department of Basic Education has been approved by the quality assurance body, Umulusi. So the readiness of the system, we can be confident, is in place. The greater challenge is the very difficult context under which their learners are going to be writing this year.
Remember, Professor, that last year the students did not complete the curriculum. Well, in some instances, they were able to find time for revisions. But will this not perhaps have an impact on the overall performance of the students?
You know, Simpiwe, I think one of the things that all South Africans who care about our young people and who care about education have to understand is that the loss of time during the 2020 first year of the pandemic has been devastating to our education system. And that is not only for this year's grade 12s who were in grade 11 last year, But learners throughout the system, the foundation phase learners last year lost a huge amount of time. So we need to accept that the support that learners are going to need is going to be over many years. Now, if we just stay with this year's grade 12s, last year when they were in grade 11, they lost about half of the year. I know that throughout the country, schools and teachers have bent over backwards to help the learners catch up. And I know that many learners will have worked as hard as they possibly can. What that means is they're going into the National Senior Certificate exam, having done their best under difficult conditions. And they will have been supported. They will be writing the exam that has to be of the same quality and the same standard as other years. Last year we saw a decline in the pass rate. I don't think anybody can predict what this year's results will be like. But we do need to know that it's going to be difficult and that it's not only the exam results that matter. It's also the whole sense of well-being and confidence that this year grade 12s will be writing under. They have been under a very stressful time in terms of this mountain that has to be climbed, which is their National Senior Certificate year. But they've also had a hard time socially. You know, you and I are older, and I'm sure I'm much older than you, but this year of like being 17 and 18 and 19 and having such a truncated social life, dealing with anxiety about infection, dealing with possible infections or even morbidity within the family, within the social circle. All of these, I think, have added to the enormous stress that this year's grade 12s will be facing. And they also will be facing heightened anxiety about what happens after they get their National Senior Certificate. So it's a traumatic and a very difficult period in one's life at any time. You will remember, I will remember, everyone will remember. But it's particularly difficult under pandemic conditions. So that we need to support the learners. We need to make sure that at school and at home they're getting support not only in terms of studying, but also in terms of their anxieties and their whole social interaction with friends and families at this time. Let's see how the writing of the paper develops. This week, all learners will be writing because the major languages are going to be written. And this is the time to reassure, to tell them that if they don't do as well as they had hoped, that there will be opportunities to improve, to rewrite, and it is an important time to give confidence and reassure.
Now, Prof, you've touched on anxiety, and I'm actually glad you raised that subject because it remains one of the, I would say, forgotten issues, especially at elementary level. Do you get a sense then that some primary schools and some high schools have adopted the culture of offering psychosocial services to the learners before and even after writing examinations and prior to the release of results?
The question of psychosocial support within the education system varies across the country. There are some departments which have greater access to psychosocial support for learners than others. But what I know about teachers is that teachers care about their learners, and the reason that they came into teaching, stay in teaching, is because what matters to them is that their learners succeed. So I think that we need to applaud all of the efforts that teachers and schools across the country have taken to encourage learners under difficult circumstances. And if we don't think about the matrics, but we think about primary school, if we think about grade 8 and 9, attending school every second day is enormously disruptive It's disruptive for the learning process. It's harder for learners to keep up to date at these times. So teachers will have been doing their best to make sure that the school is a safe environment, that learning is contained and continues. But we need to understand that there's no quick fixes here.
And perhaps one thorny issue that not only affects the Gauteng Education Department but the national education sector as well is the issue of leakages. We've seen last year in the maths and science papers being leaked. So are there any stringent measures being put in place in this year's examination to ensure that such doesn't happen?
Last year, the leakage was worrying because it was the first time that I was aware of that this took place on social media. I think that we need to have confidence that the DBE and Umolusi thoroughly investigated that leakage. They were able to get the information that they found, and that they would have been even more careful this year in terms of making sure that the integrity of the results can be protected. We're fortunate. DBE is the examining authority. It's the National Department of Education that's the examining authority. And then we have a quality assurance body. And the quality assurance body is Umolusi. And it's not just what the DBE does, but it's also Umolusi's oversight that will give us confidence in terms both of preparations as well as in the final statement of the validity of those results.
There's also the issue of continuous assessment, which is a very important part of the evaluation of South African students at matriculation level, well, in particular with about 25% weight in the final matriculation exam. So, Prof, from your understanding and from what you have observed, where are we in terms of re-evaluating the efficacy of a continuous assessment program?
Continuous assessment is absolutely critical all the way through the. And in fact, at this time of the whole system adjusting to the challenges of COVID, the Department of Education has correctly emphasized for all grades the importance of continuous assessment, because the question of what is taught has to be, and what is learned, it's the responsibility of teachers to be constantly assessing so that they can take their practices. For the Matric, or the National Senior Certificate, the role of continuous assessment is crucial. It means that a learner's performance in the National Senior Certificate is shaped not only by how they perform in the written exam on that one significant day, but it's also informed by their work during the year. Now, that's a very important principle in education, that work that's done during the year is crucial not only in preparing for the exam, but also in monitoring success and the processes of the country to monitor continuous assessment. We need continuous assessment, and it's a good education.
And having said that, Prof, do you think it's fair, though, to use the exam mark as a standard against which to judge the continuous assessment marks?
You see, the statisticians who do the very careful work of looking at the validity of the result are able to, through the statistics, look for strange patterns that don't make sense and investigate that further. So the role of the statistician is to look at the continuous assessment mark, to look at the exam mark, to look at the performance year by year by year across schools, and to note if there's anything unusual. So I have confidence in those statisticians. Personally, I couldn't do that statistical work, but we need to know that the country's statisticians are working with Umolusi to make sure that the results can be stated as reliable.
Okay, Professor Mary Metcalfe, lovely chatting to you. Thank you so much for your analysis on this matter.
Thanks a lot.
That is Professor Mary Metcalfe from the University of Johannesburg's Education, and she's an Education Senior Researcher at the University of Johannesburg.